Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we'll launch an EMR using advanced configuration option. On the AWS Management Console, I'm searching for EMR. This is the EMR landing page. Now I'll click on Create Cluster. I'll then click on Go to Advanced Options. In the first step, that is Software and Steps, I'll choose a release. Here, as you can see, in addition to the latest releases, we also have some prior releases. I'll select the latest one. I'll also deselect all the applications other than Hadoop and Hive. So as a part of this deployment, I'll only have Hadoop and Hive on my cluster. We can also enter some software settings as a part of enter configuration. For this demo, I'll go with the defaults. I'll then click on next and move to the hardware selection page. So we have two options for instance group configuration: uniform instance groups and instance fleets. In uniform instance group, we specify a single instance type and purchasing option for each node type. Whereas in instance fleets, we specify target capacity and how Amazon EMR fulfills it for each node type. We can use mixed instance types and purchasing options for each node type in instance fleets. For this demo, we'll use uniform instance groups. We have an option to select the network and the EC2 subnet as well. Currently, we only have one VPC and therefore we'll go ahead with the same. We can also update the root device EBS volume size. The default is 10 GB. We can change the instance type for the master, core and task nodes. For this demo, we are using M4 large for each of these nodes. We can set the instance count for core and task node types. For master, it is always 1. We can use on-demand or spot instances as a purchasing option. Be careful when you are choosing spot instances for master and core node types. We can also have the auto-scaling policy for core nodes and task nodes. We can have multiple rules for each scale out and scale in option. So here I have wrongly entered the maximum instance as 1 and the minimum instance as 2. I'll edit the auto-scaling policy and update the maximum instance as 2 and minimum instance as 1. I'll then click on done. So we can apply auto-scaling only for a core and task node types and not for a master node type. Then we'll click on next. In the next step, we'll set the cluster name. We'll use cluster advanced options in this case. We'll disable termination protection, but for production environment, it is advisable to enable termination protection. We can also use bootstrap actions to run a set of commands before Hadoop is installed on the cluster. We then click on next. In the security options group, we can choose an EC2 key pair. For this demo, we'll go ahead with the default settings for the rest. We then click on create cluster. We'll wait for the cluster to be up. We'll also make an entry of the IP address of Cloud9 EC2 instance in the security group for master so that we'll be able to connect to the master node. Take a note of the DNS address of the master node and try connecting it using Cloud9. So here we are able to connect to the master node and we are able to check the version of Hadoop as well. Now we are checking the version for Hive. As we know, while configuring the cluster, we only checked Hadoop and Hive and therefore no other components should have been installed on this cluster. To check that, let's check the version of Pig. And as you can see, pig is not installed on this cluster. We'll disconnect from the cluster and then terminate the cluster. So in this lecture, we launched an EMR cluster using advanced options. In the next lecture, we'll have some quiz questions for you. All the best and have a nice day. Thank you.